And good evening once again, everybody. Welcome to another Hoops HD bracket rundown. Uh, this show where we build at least the seedless portion of a bracket right here on the air. By
Yeah.
tomorrow morning or sometime tomorrow, we'll have an actual bracket that we're building tonight done. And joining us, first of all, live from Indianapolis, where he's been working on building brackets with the media all day, David Griggs, our Hoops HD media mock committee member. How are you doing, David?
I,
How are things
I'm
going
doing
there?
great, and I'm just sitting here live in Indianapolis. Uh, don't get thrown. I mean, I know it looks like I'm at home, but I'm in Indianapolis.
You just brought your couch with you, right?
Yes. I brought my couch with me. Um,
How
well,
were the media brackets built today? How was that going?
it was they kicked me out again. I was trying to explain to everyone that they were wrong and how stupid they were, and they kicked me out. I was just trying to help.
Well, will you like try to insist that Tim Miles got his own entry on the seed
Well, yeah,
list?
I was trying to explain like the Miles index, like the Miles quotient index, to where
Right.
the number of games you have played either with Tim Miles or against him should count to your profile, and that Nebraska, who's played literally every game with Tim Miles, should be higher. And then the other thing was that I was trying to explain that they needed to put Kansas and Missouri together. They just threw me out of the room, and they told me to sober up or so. I don't know.
Uh, well, joining us as well tonight is
I hate the
John again,
talk.
and John, I think you got a little bit of swag there that we need to show off.
Oh, that's correct. The team of the people, NJIT.
Oh
Oh my
yes.
God, I'm blown
Uh,
away.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
NJIT Nation has come to Cincinnati.
They wouldn't put NJIT in the field either, Chad. They were ignoring the team of the people. They were acting like they'd never even heard of the team of the
Now, the
people.
team of the people,
Stupid.
now in all seriousness, at College Insider, tweet to them. I started it last night. Tell them to
Yes.
select NJIT. I know that they actually have a selection committee. We want to make sure that when that selection committee for the CIT goes into the room, they have NJIT on their board because they belong
Yes.
in that CIT this year.
They absolutely do.
And what we're going to do tonight, the plan is we're going to run through the seed list, much like we did the last few weeks, build it 1 through 68, um,
Well,
and
are we going to
discuss.
build why aren't we building a bracket on the show? Gee,
Because building a bracket is a procedural nightmare to do on the
gee, it's not like anything could go wrong if we tried to do that. Don't go searching in my channel, by the way.
air. We're doing this about an hour later than we were scheduled to start, and we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
But anyhow, I think actually I'm the one with the screen share tonight, so
Wait a minute, why? Why can't I ever arbitrate? I need to tell you all when you all are wrong and put the correct seed list together.
okay. So if we give it a second here, we're going to pull up a blank seed list right on my screen, uh, and can we see it?
We
Yes,
can.
we can.
All right, wonderful. And as you can see, because there's no dispute that Kentucky is the number one overall team, they've already gone in.
Well, no, Virginia is the number one team.
I,
I like them. John's arbitrating, by the way, even though
yes.
Chad is typing. But here's what I like about Virginia, John, and this is why we're going to move them down. Just the roadway. They've won at North Carolina. They've won at VCU. They've won at Maryland. They've won at Notre Dame. I think Virginia is better on paper, but the real pitch I have here is that I think Virginia is a better team than Kentucky. I don't think the committee would have Kentucky as the overall number one. Oh, and that's another thing. Tonight we're going a little bit. Normally we look at the same criteria that the selection committee does and weigh it that way. Tonight we're basically just going off of what we think it should be, not necessarily what we think the committee will do. The selection committee would absolutely have Kentucky number one. I personally think Virginia has better paper, and I think they have a better team.
And
And
it's
if,
also important to note that Virginia's win at VCU also came when they're healthy.
right,
VCU starting to rack up some ugly losses in the Atlantic
right.
10 play.
And Virginia has that injury right now, but I think when they get him back, and they're at full strength, they will have actually become a deeper team because right now they're having to use their depth to compensate for the injury. This is a very good Virginia team. It's a very good Kentucky team. I realize it's a stretch, but I do think Virginia is a better team. So let's put them up there, John.
I mean, when it comes to Kentucky, I got a few numbers to throw at you. AP poll number 1, coaches poll number 1, RPI number 1, Ken Palm number 1, BPI number 1. The only thing they don't have a 1 in, which Virginia does, is the loss column. Kentucky is the number 1 team, and anybody that says differently is just wrong.
Well,
and how long will Kentucky have the goose egg?
Well, I think Virginia's more susceptible to being beaten than Kentucky. The style that they play, if they could be blowing out a team but only have a 6 or 7 point lead, a couple 3-pointers get somebody right in the game.
Yeah, Kentucky has had, again, the teams that Kentucky's had to sweat out, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Florida, these are good teams, but they're not as good as Duke. And they just, I think Virginia's played a tougher schedule. They've played more top 10 teams away from home.
Didn't they beat Kansas?
Who's the Kentucky? Yeah, but that was on a neutral floor. It wasn't a true road win. They're both really good. It's just that Virginia belongs up there as number 1.
John, Kentucky or Virginia?
Kentucky, no question.
What the? Okay.
Well, so we're going to go with Kentucky number 1. We're going to have Virginia number 2 overall.
Chad,
the 3 and the 4 team. Yes, I know you see me.
Okay.
We're getting it back. Don't worry.
Okay.
Even if Joby were here, I'd still say Kentucky number 1.
Well, that's the thing. Joby's misguided. He would also say Kentucky's number 1. Okay.
Virginia's number 2. I don't think there's any doubt that Duke is the number 3 team overall. Is that a unanimous?
Yeah, I agree with that. The reason being their road wins are amazing. They've won at Wisconsin, only team that's done it. At Louisville, only team that's done it. Louisville has 2 losses at home, but they've won at Wisconsin, at Louisville, and at Virginia. 2 teams that are that's 3 road wins against protected seeds against teams that only have 4 combined losses at home. I really like this Duke profile. I've always been hard on Duke in the past for not winning big road games. They have certainly done that this year. And again, one of their losses at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a protected seed as well, I believe. We'll get to them here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So
the number 4 overall team, I do agree with the team that I know you're going to pick here, David. I think there's a very strong case that could be made for maybe for Kansas, but even more so for Wisconsin as the 4th best team overall. Wisconsin is just playing better and better every day. They have, the Rutgers loss, you could really write it off to the injuries. And all they did was lose to Duke, which is all that Virginia did, isn't it?
Right, yeah. And again, a very strong case can be made for Wisconsin. I think they have better paper than Gonzaga, but again, Gonzaga, I just think Gonzaga has the better team. I think that's who the committee would take, even though when you look at the numbers and you look at the paper, Wisconsin's probably better. One of the areas where I think Gonzaga is going to be really high is this NABC advisory committee. I think they're all going to say Gonzaga is one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country, easily the best team in the Western region, and I think that tips Gonzaga over. Because, again, the rankings really do influence the committee, as we've seen in the past. But in this case, I just think the rankings are correct. I think Gonzaga is better. You could make a case for Wisconsin, certainly, and even one for Kansas. But I like this Gonzaga team. I think they're better than both of them.
And let's not forget that Gonzaga also had a win at UCLA earlier in the year. Didn't look as impressive in November and December, but is looking more impressive now as UCLA starts to get closer to the bubble again.
Right.
Yep. Well, we're gonna get there eventually, but let's start with the move to the 2 line here. I think we do agree Wisconsin and Kansas are the top 2 lines and the top 2 teams on the 2 line.
Yeah.
And I would put them in that order unless either one of you disagree.
I don't. No.
I would still put Kansas over Wisconsin just because of the sheer volume of their wins in Big 12 play.
My problem with Kansas is the sheer volume of their losses, as in just the number of losses that they have. It's too
Kansas's
many.
paper is really, really good, but again, I'm not necessarily trying to guess the committee tonight. I just think Wisconsin's a better team.
Yeah, I mean, and Kansas, you have that loss at Temple, plus a loss at Oklahoma State, plus a loss at Iowa State. Yeah, yeah, none of those are awful losses, but not if you want to be, on the border of that 1 seed. I think you got to win more than that, especially this season.
But they also have the top strength of schedule so far this year. And I think number 2 non-conference.
But look at But if you look at the BPI, they're number 9. If you look at KenPom, they're number 10. They're even worse than this. They should be in the 3 line according to those rankings. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7 overall, I think, is the Villanova Wildcats.
I think it is too. They don't have any monster wins, especially away from home, but it's just, with just 2 losses on the year, they do have the win over VCU, and it was they blasted VCU, and this is when VCU was at full strength. They have the win at Providence. They have other notable wins, Butler, Georgetown, Illinois, who I think we both have in the field. It's a solid team. I think Villanova is even better than their paper. I do think that they belong up here at number 7.
And they've got a huge game at Butler coming up as well. So if they win that one, they can really separate themselves from the pack in the Big East.
Right.
At number 8, I know the last bracket I did not go with this since events have happened over this week. I do have Arizona number 8 overall.
Yeah. And
I think they're susceptible to sliding down, though, because they have 3 losses to teams that we are not going to be discussing tonight.
No. Oregon State is pretty good. Well, no, we're not going to be discussing, but I really tasseled with putting Arizona State in the field because, again, the rule tonight was we were disregarding the committee, and the curtain of surprise should get Arizona.
Curtain of distraction.
Curtain of distraction. I'm sorry.
David,
get Arizona State into the field.
I've been thinking about this. I think we need to get you a curtain of distraction for our next podcast.
Yes,
Can we work on that.
I need to go out to Arizona State. That is the most brilliant piece of fandom in the history of sports.
I got to give him credit. That is awesome.
This is way before my time. They said it was the Dodgers symphony back in the Ebbets Field days. It's the curtain of distraction. It is the greatest thing I have ever seen. In fact, let's put Arizona State on the 2 line.
Okay. John, you're the arbiter here. So Arizona or Arizona State?
Oh, that's tough. Because Grand Canyon's not
Oh, man.
So what was the decision?
Grand Canyon.
Oh, they're not eligible.
That was between Arizona or Arizona State.
Yeah.
U of A.
No curtain of distraction.
Yeah.
All right. Going to the 3 line. My 3 line was as follows: Louisville, Notre Dame, Iowa State, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I had Iowa State, Louisville, Notre Dame in that order, but there is a team that I had ahead of them. And again, getting into what I think the committee will do, I do not think the committee will do this. I had Northern Iowa as my number 9 overall team. The one thing that they are lacking, they do not have the paper that anybody else were going to be looking at as a protective seed. They did have the neutral floor win at Iowa. But, again, they won at Stephen F. Austin. They're the only team to do it. They've beaten Illinois State on the road. They have a couple other wins here that indicate I just think that with the sheer number of road wins and when you look at their 2 losses, it's a hard case to make. But their 2 losses, one in double overtime to VCU and the other just by 3 points, they're essentially 4 points away from being undefeated. I think on the court, I know they're not that good on paper, but I do think that they are a top 10 team. I think they're that good.
Well, David, I think when you're sitting here trying to say who's a 2 seed, who's a 3 seed, who's a 4 seed,
yeah,
you got to look at everything. And if they hadn't lost the game to Evansville, I'd probably be with you right here. But they did lose that game, and that might be the deciding factor to push them down there.
Yeah. Do you think, again, if they were to play Louisville or Iowa State or Notre Dame on a neutral floor, who do you think would win? Honestly,
Louisville. I think Northern Iowa loses all three of those games.
do you really? Okay, I think that they
Yes.
would be. I mean, I think they could win all three of those. Okay, but that was another factor for me. So, but again, I would have Northern Iowa up at number 9. The one team that I did have that this would have been number 13. So my top number 4, if we're going down that far, is the Baylor Bears.
Okay. Well, I think I lost the screen there for a second, so let me get it back up again.
Yeah.
John, you're our arbiter here. Who is on our number 3 line?
I have Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Louisville, and Notre Dame.
So we're together on Iowa State, Louisville, and Notre Dame. Chad's been disappeared. Chad's gone. So who are we putting up there? We have the rest of the. We better hurry up because I have a feeling Chad might be back.
Let's add Davidson in while we can.
Yes, we're going to add Davidson. He is going to be so excited to hear that we're putting Davidson on the 4 line when he comes back. So John, who are your teams? You said you had Iowa State, Louisville, Notre Dame. Who was your other one? Oklahoma.
I have Oklahoma, Iowa State, Louisville, Notre Dame.
Yeah, the thing about Oklahoma is that they are all over the place. And again, they have a lot of good wins, but I could make the case for Oklahoma, but it's just some of their the loss at Creighton. Actually, now that I'm looking at Oklahoma, they're not too bad. They do have a lot of losses like that. I mean, it's just the 7 losses overall. But again, okay, so Chad, what it is, it's in this order, I believe. It's Louisville, Iowa State, Notre Dame, and Davidson.
Louisville, Iowa State, Notre Dame,
and good Davidson.
And Kirchen. I couldn't even spell that right. Okay. Louisville, Iowa State, Notre Dame, and was it Northern Iowa or Oklahoma? I think that was.
Well, yeah, the dispute is Oklahoma, because John had Oklahoma. Was Oklahoma on your 3 line?
Yes. Top of my 3 line, actually.
So, John, you agreed with me that Oklahoma belongs here.
That's correct.
I'm telling you, I mean, Northern Iowa is better than all 4 of those teams. Northern Iowa will crush the non-believers.
So on the 4 line, I think we do agree that you and I should be the top team at this point.
Yeah. And again, they do have weak paper. I am not disputing that. The other teams I had here are Okie State, who is kind of thundering down the stretch right now. I know the committee doesn't favor momentum. I do kind of take it into consideration. I mean, I look at everything, but as well as Oklahoma State's playing, you got to look at them. And I had, let me see, Baylor. Have we put Baylor in yet?
Nope.
No.
Okay, I had them ahead of Okie State. And my 16th team is the Butler Bulldogs. I think that their paper is really, really good. It's really coming down to them in North Carolina, but I had Butler at number 16. They're moving up in the rankings. They, again, appear to be getting better and better as the season goes along.
Well, I agree.
Also has head-to-head with North Carolina.
Yeah.
I do agree with you on Baylor and Okie State here. I think I disagree with you on the North Carolina, on the Butler versus North Carolina argument, and I know Butler did win the head-to-head game. Butler, you've got, in terms of top 50, they have a win at St. John's, neutral court wins over Carolina and Georgetown. Carolina in the top 50, they've got neutral court wins against UCLA and Ohio State, as well as the home court win over Louisville, which is better than anything Butler has done. Well, maybe as good as
other than beat North Carolina.
Other than beat North Carolina. Looking a little bit beyond the top 50, though, Carolina has 4 more wins away from home against teams ranked 51 through 100, including, I mean, these are not joke games. They won at NC State, which Duke couldn't do. They beat Florida. They beat Davidson, who you wanted to put in the field already. all that Butler has done is beaten Seton Hall twice in that next group, and Butler has a loss at Tennessee, which is not going to be in this field.
Butler has beaten St. John's twice. That's
and St. John's is as squarely on the bubble as anybody in the country right now.
Yeah, but it's close. Again, Butler has notable wins: North Carolina neutral court, Georgetown neutral court. You look at North Carolina's neutral court wins, Ohio State, UCLA. I think those are pretty comparable. And again, the true road win, Butler beat the Johnnies, sort of a fringe bubble team. North Carolina beat NC State, also kind of a fringe bubble team. NC State has some home loss. I think NC State has 6 losses at home already. So, again, it isn't like NC State's world beaters at home. I think it's very, very close. The tipping point for me, and I realize that like head-to-head is considered, but it's the entire body of work. But me personally, when it's close and they've played head-to-head on a neutral floor, I go with the team that won the head-to-head game.
All right. Well, John, you're as the tiebreaker here. We already had Oklahoma State and Baylor in. Is it Butler or is it Carolina?
I'm going to go with Butler and the puppet on this one.
Let's put Butler in the field.
All right. So we put
Cheers,
Butler in.
John.
I think.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think we would all agree that North Carolina goes at the top of the 5 line.
Right. And to our audience here, I think we're one off, Chad and I. It's kind of crazy because it looks like there's a line difference, but really, we're not that far off on either of them. Did you have Butler? Were they your 17, Chad?
Yeah, Butler. Okay. I'll make a confession here. I had both Maryland and Wichita State also on top of Butler.
You're crazy.
So I'm not that big of a fan of this Butler profile, but again, I mean, it is such a close call.
Holtman hater. Why do you got to be a Holtman hater?
It's really a close call here. I do think Maryland and Wichita State would be your next 2 teams, and after them, Utah to finish out the 5 line.
Yeah, I had Utah, Wichita State, and Maryland, so we have the same teams, just the orders jumbled a bit. I could live with that. Like Utah. The one knock on them is that they haven't done a whole lot away from home. I guess I've just been really holding my nose when I've been watching Maryland play. I know they just beat Indiana, but they beat an Indiana team that's decent but not great on the road, and they had to sweat them out to do it.
But the fact is that they won the game, and I think they really needed that win. Really broke them out of the funk that they've been in, I guess. And with this Utah profile, they've done their best road win is at BYU, who we are not going to be discussing again tonight.
Thank God.
And at home, they beat their 3 top 50 wins are UCLA and Stanford, who are both squarely on the bubble, and Wichita State. So that's 1 major win there. Offset with 4 losses, including a loss at UCLA and a loss at San Diego State that neither team is playing that great right now. Well, I guess UCLA is playing pretty good right now, but neither team is that great overall.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, John, what's our order of those 3 teams going to be?
Okay, so now we're talking about Wichita, Maryland, and Oklahoma State. Is that correct?
No, and Utah.
Yeah.
And Utah.
Yeah, Okie State's already in.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's Wichita State, Maryland, and Utah in that order.
All right, Wichita, Maryland at 19, and Utah at number 20 overall.
This is exciting stuff.
All right. With that, let's go on to the 6th line.
Okay. Again, we're going to start to differ here because I don't think the committee would go this route. I had the Georgetown Hoyas up here. Arkansas, they have some really good wins at home, decent wins on the road. The committee's not going to like this team as much as I do. I have SMU all the way up here, and then I have Providence right behind them.
Well, David, you're half right.
Well,
I do.
Okay, no, you're half wrong.
I agree with you on both Providence and SMU on this line. My other 2 teams here will be West Virginia and Indiana.
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Have you? So, I mean, I'm just not okay. So you don't have Georgetown and Arkansas up this high?
I think Georgetown is playing like utter crap right now. I'd have them on the 7 line. Same with Arkansas. I don't think it's playing like crap. I just don't think they have the profile to be on the 6 line right now. I think I have them on the 7 as well. Uh, on this West Virginia profile, again, maybe once that I really made the change based on the way we're doing this bracket tonight. Uh, I like the way I think this is a good West Virginia team, but they don't have that huge win. I mean, they do have one huge win. They beat Oklahoma, but it was at home.
But it was at home.
But they have no bad losses. None of them.
They have no bad losses. Okay, and again, I realize they're going to get more credit for this than what the RPI indicates. Their best road, they don't have a single true road win against anybody in the top 100. They did beat Kansas State on the road. They will get some credit for that. I just don't. I mean,
they beat UConn and NC State are neutral court wins too, though, so they get credit for those.
Yeah, they do. But I mean, they went into Baylor and got absolutely curb stomped. Was it Baylor?
Yeah, but it was Baylor, and Baylor was way ahead of them on this list.
Okay, well,
I can't blame you for getting curb stomped by a team that's much higher than you on this list. I blame you for getting curb stomped by a team below you on the list, aka Miami losing to Eastern Kentucky. But
West Virginia was actually curb stomped at home against Baylor.
It's still Baylor's a better team, and Baylor's a team that should have won that game.
Well, I don't think you're going to get any arguments there. Wow.
But then Baylor turns around, they beat West Virginia turns around, they beat Kansas State at home. That's something they're supposed to do, and they did it. They took care of business.
Yeah. They also have, I mean, right along those lines, they have wins against Texas Tech, Monmouth, and VMI, and Kansas State at home.
Hey, wait. Don't go knocking the Monmouth Hawks here.
Yeah. Okay. So, John, I appeal to you. Are you going to do the right decision, or are you going to agree with Chad here?
Monmouth.
All right. Yes.
I can agree with you.
And Monmouth.
I can agree with you in Georgetown and Providence. I would also have West Virginia and Arkansas on the 6th line.
Okay.
I would not agree that SMU and Indiana are that high yet.
Yeah. Well, who are the two teams we agreed on? I'm surprised you have SMU this high, Chad. I agree with you, but I didn't think you would have them this high.
They were my very last number 6 seed, but I did have them this high just because they haven't really done anything bad. And when you get to the 6th line, we're looking more at what have you done bad versus what have you done good.
Right, and I know they lost at home to Cincinnati, but outside of that, this team is really playing well. Yeah, and I mean, they just look really good. Their paper might not back it up. I don't know if the committee would have them this high, although they are in the rankings. That might help some, although not a lot. But I was kind of shocked. I thought you would have them around the 8-9 range, which is where I think a lot of people would have them. But I like them on this list. So we agreed on SMU, and who was the other one?
We agreed on Providence and SMU, so I think the way that those two teams go in first, and then John makes their decision on between our other 4 teams, who else goes on the 6th line.
Yeah, which is Georgetown, Arkansas, or West Virginia, and who was your other one?
Indiana.
And if we're going by the criteria that we're avoiding bad losses, then we'll go with West Virginia and Georgetown in this line.
All right.
He agrees with each of us once.
Yeah.
West Virginia and Georgetown.
I just have not been impressed with West Virginia. I mean, I thought I was for a while.
I have not been impressed with Georgetown, so we're even.
All right. And again, this is how the committee. Well, they don't have an arbitrator, but on down to the 7. So who are the 2 carryovers? Because I think I had both of. Like I did have West Virginia on the 7. Who was the other holdover?
Your team was Arkansas, mine was Indiana. I agree that Arkansas should definitely be here. So I think we would actually, by that, we would put Arkansas top here.
Yeah, I have Indiana at 28, so on this line. Actually, I would amend that. I had Iowa ahead of them. I don't think I would after tonight.
And I did as well, actually. I actually did my homework and made my change before we came on the air, unlike other people.
Well, some of us are busy.
So the other 2 teams that I would say are here on the 7 line are. I'm sorry, you put Indiana. We said Indiana already. Would be
Yes.
actually I would have Iowa still at the bottom of the 7 line here, along with VCU.
Okay.
And this is where VCU fell to for me. I had to stop the fall sub at some point.
Okay, I have the team I would have up here is San Diego State. Let's go ahead and because we are so far apart on VCU, I have VCU on the 11 line. That's not where the committee would have them. That's how they appear to be playing. Since the injury, they haven't even looked like an NCAA tournament team at all. Losing at home to a non-tournament team and then sweating out the Bonnies, or did they lose to the Bonnies?
They lost to the Bonnies.
They lost to the Bonnies.
Yeah, they look hideous since losing that player. Now the actual committee is probably in line with Chad. Me, in my own criteria, I have, again, what have they done since the injuries to indicate that they're better than a 7? And when you start looking at their profile and what it's becoming, let me pull it up here.
They won at George Mason without him.
They lost to LaSalle at home, which is not good.
Well,
no, LaSalle is a lot better team than George Mason. So
yeah, but they really only have 2 wins against teams that are solidly in the field. Northern Iowa at home and Cincinnati. Both of those came at full strength. I mean, they did have the wins over Oregon. They've looked impressive, beating Oregon, beating George Washington. They're going to get quite a bit of credit for that win at Rhode Island, or they would have had it not been for the injury. But since the injury, they just haven't looked good at all. I don't think I realize that even on our seed list, I don't think we're going to have them down on the 11, but that is how unimpressive I think they've looked recently.
Well, what we've got here is we've agreed on Arkansas and Indiana. My other 2 teams here were Iowa and VCU. David, who were your other 2 teams?
I had San Diego State. I had Iowa. Yeah, I did have Iowa on this line, and then West Virginia. My next one would have been Kansas because we agreed on Indiana and
so we've now also agreed on Iowa here.
Yeah.
So
and I had San Diego State. West Virginia's already in. Texas would have been my next team.
Well, San Diego. So the debate here for the last 7 seasons is actually going to be San Diego State versus VCU.
Yeah. I don't even think it's close.
I'll tell you what. I do not like the San Diego State profile at all. I mean, I have them on my 8 line at the bottom of my 8 line. But what have they done? Really, they beat Utah at home, and that's it.
Yeah,
I mean, meanwhile they lost at Fresno State, who's number 233 in the RPI.
Well, you know, it's an in-state rivalry. It's you know. I mean, if you lived in Fresno, wouldn't you be pissed at San Diego too? I mean, you're going to get really up for that game.
They've also lost at Washington. Washington's not going to be in this field. They lost at Boise, who but it may not be in this field. I mean, if we're going to put Boise in, they're going to be in their first 4. So
okay, well, this is my thing, and again, this is a question. When putting this week's seed list together, next week I won't be asking this. Who would win, San Diego State or VCU?
All right, John, I'm about to concede an argument to the puppet.
Yeah, I would have to go with VCU at this point.
Oh my God!
No,
okay.
I was about to concede it because I think right now, if they played today, San Diego State would win the game.
Yeah.
And if that's our criteria, I would agree with David. I would concede the point.
All right.
But John, you're the final decision maker here.
Yeah.
Well, since you conceded, I'll go San Diego State then.
All right.
But he tricked me. Okay. The 8 line. My 8 line would be as follows. I would still have VCU. They're my carryover. The other 3 teams I'd have in this mix here are LSU, Ole Miss, and Ohio State.
Okay, I have at the top of the 8 line Texas, who has a lot of losses, but all of them but 1 are 2 protected seeds. So I kind of like them. Ole Miss, I agree with. LSU. And I know I've been dogging them on our regular podcasts, but I actually have Xavier up this high on the 8 line. And my reason is they've been atrocious away from home, but they've started to win a smattering of road games. They looked really impressive. Was it Seton Hall that they just beat? Who'd they beat, John?
Marquette they just beat.
Marquette, yeah, and they dismantled them. And a lot of their home losses have at least been close. Now, I realize Chad's criteria is a little different. You don't get a lot of credit for almost winning, but I do think that this Xavier team is showing that they could at least compete away from home now.
Well, I'm not too offended by either your Texas or your Xavier picks. I had them both on the 9 line, and at the end of the day, there's not much difference between being an 8 seed or a 9 seed.
Right, and to be honest, I had Ohio State 33 top of the 9 line, so.
So we did agree on LSU and Ole Miss. My other teams would have been Ohio State and VCU.
Yeah.
David's are Texas and Xavier. John, what do you think about those 4 choices there?
So let's see. You had Ohio State, Xavier, Texas, and who was the 4th?
VCU still.
And I don't have. I mean, like I said, I have VCU way down, and.
I would go with VCU and Xavier if I had to choose between those 4.
VCU and Xavier.
Yeah. Okay, and the good news is we didn't go with Ohio State, which makes it very, very likely we'll see a Xavier versus Ohio State situation when Chad puts this bracket together. Right, Chad?
Yeah. Well, I just put Ohio State and Texas in as the 2 top 9 seeds because we did both agree with them at this point. They were our 2 holdovers.
Yeah. Okay, and then busting out the next 2, you're gonna. This is a team, and if you've been following us all throughout the year, and especially in recent weeks, I've been talking all season how much I love this team. I have the Temple Owls on this line.
Okay. You know what, though? I'm not too offended by that. I started to laugh. Then I looked where I had Temple, and I have them on the 10 line.
Yeah, well, I thought you were laughing because I said you were on crack for having them in the field at all earlier in the week.
You actually moved them higher than I had them. That's kind of impressive.
Yes. And I have Illinois up here.
I agree with you on Illinois. I had them here. My other team on the 9 line here is Dayton.
Again, my thing with Dayton, I think the paper is there. They've avoided bad losses. They've won some games away from home. The one thing I can't get past for this week's criteria, which again I'm doing differently, is just how weak their personnel is. I mean, they're only 6 deep. They have no real front court. I don't think they don't have a whole lot of wins against teams in the field, so I kind of knocked them down. They're actually down on my 11. But
David, isn't the argument you just made how the team has been playing with its current roster? That's the argument you made against VCU.
Yes.
Dayton has been winning with this roster.
Yes. Well, now I'm saying that I think their personnel.
John, what do you think about this Dayton versus Temple argument, I guess?
Right.
Wow, what an argument for the 9 line.
Well, okay, they did.
Sounds like an old A-10 rivalry again.
Yeah. Okay, I am very impressed with what Dayton has done. And I do think the committee would have them on the 9 line. It's just me personally. Again, they beat Ole Miss at home, and they beat Ole Miss at home at a time when Ole Miss was not winning, I think, 6 and 7 in a row the way they are now. And the neutral floor over Texas A&M, who's a fringe bubble team, that's really it. But they've avoided bad losses. I just think they would struggle when they haven't beaten tournament caliber teams when they've played them. Dayton hasn't.
But I would give a slight edge to Dayton here at this point.
Victory.
How much did Chad pay you, John? I want to know.
I paid him in NJIT gear.
Yes, you did.
I did go ahead and put Temple in there on the 10 line because I think we both agreed they would be a 10 seed.
Let's talk about them real quick because again, it might sound good, But when you look at them, I'm trying to pull. This is not easy with no arms.
They have no bad losses.
No bad losses. Now these are home wins, but again, the committee might not value them, but you do deserve some credit for winning at home. They handily beat, not just beat, but handily beat Kansas and Cincinnati. Kansas is way up on the 2 line, and Cincinnati, I think we're going to get into the field here very soon. No bad losses. Away, winning at Memphis, at UConn, both of whom I think are a combined. I think they're in the neighborhood of winning 75% of their games at home. Those are good wins, even if the RPI isn't good. This is a pretty good profile.
Yeah, I mean, a home win over Louisiana Tech is a decent win.
Yeah.
A neutral court win over this LaSalle team. LaSalle's actually been playing pretty good lately.
Yeah.
And they have a decent profile. It's an NIT profile, but
Right.
you if you want to be in the NCAA tournament, beat NIT teams away from home, and that's what they did there.
Yeah.
And the only real bad loss that Temple has at this point is against St. Joe's, although even that could be excused as a Big Five rivalry.
Yeah. Now, I'm looking at I watched that game. I remember that wasn't that at the Palestra? Why is that listed as a true road game?
No, that was on St. Joe's.
No, that was at St. Joe's.
It was? Okay. I'm misremembering here.
You were drinking too much that day.
Well, that explains it.
As opposed to every other day?
True. Why don't we go over and look at the rest of the 10 line? My other 3 teams here on the 10 are Cincinnati, Georgia, and Michigan State.
Okay. Let me see here, because I did have Old Dominion up this high prior to them losing.
Now, Old Dominion, lost at Texas San Antonio tonight, as I predicted last night.
Okay. Okay. So we need 3 more. I agree with you on Cincinnati. My next 2, one of them is Miami, the very schizophrenic Miami Hurricanes, and the other one, way inside the bubble. Oh God, I clicked on the wrong. Okay, just a second here. I just need to have them ready, because the second I say who it is, I'm going to get stuff thrown at me. The Boise State Broncos. I have them all the way up here.
Okay, well, let me start with Miami. I do have in my field above the first 4. I do have them near the top of my 11 line, not that far off from them as you are. Boise State, I have currently ranked as my 5th team out. They are not only out, there's 4 other teams I like better than them. Yes, they are playing really well right now, but David, you have this love affair with Leon Rice, and that's all that your selection is about.
Well, I mean,
He's replaced Tim Miles, I think, in your eyes at this point.
Oh well, he's a very good coach. I guess what it is, the paper could be better.
It could be a lot better. Losses to Loyola and to Utah State, and their best road win was at St. Mary's.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, they have wins. Well, yeah, but it's not easy to win at St. Mary's. Just as St. Mary's, they won at New Mexico State. They won at Utah State. Now, again, those aren't even NIT teams, but look at what those teams have done at home. It's fairly respectable.
I understand that, and which is why this team is on my board and moving up on my board, but they're not there yet. Give them another week. If they win at Fresno and win at UNLV their next 2, I will seriously consider having them in the field. I just think they are not there yet.
Okay. And again, Miami was the other team, schizophrenic all over the place. Chad, you're going to die because, again, I'm doing things differently this week. I'm disregarding what I think the committee's going to do.
Right.
Would you like to know who my next team is, so we can try and come to an arbitrary consensus here?
Well, my 2 teams out that we did not put in are Georgia and Michigan State. Your 2 were Miami and Boise. So who's your next team?
My next team, and this should simplify things. My next team is Stephen F. Austin.
Okay. Well, you are definitely on crack at this point. But David, my next team, let me make things simpler here. My next team is a team that plays in the same exact conference as Boise and has a better profile, and that's Colorado State.
Yeah. I could live with Colorado State. They're just inside my first four. I had them on the next line. I do like this Colorado State team. I mean, I think they've stubbed their toes a little bit, but then again, so is Boise. Again, the question I'm always asking myself with SFA, who could not possibly have weaker paper. It's so weak, I don't think the committee will even consider them. But when I ask myself that question, do I think SFA would beat these teams or compete with these teams on a neutral floor? I think they would.
Well, John, we're going to throw this whole debate over to you now, for your opinions on all this stuff.
I'm a little surprised we haven't thrown Georgia in the field yet, because they also got a nice road win.
Oh, wait a minute. How did I miss them? God, I had Georgia up on my 9 line.
I mentioned Georgia.
Is Georgia in the field
yet? No.
Nope, they're not.
So Georgia's going in. Okay, good.
Georgia's going in. All right.
We're putting Georgia in. So it's really one team we're left to
Where is Georgia? Did we make a mistake? Well, you made a mistake. I never make mistakes. But, yeah, I had Georgia. How did I must have just overlooked them. I had them ahead of Temple.
Okay.
All right.
Actually, so let's move Georgia. So I click off here. Let me get the screen back up again. We're going to move Georgia up above Temple here.
Okay.
As soon as we get the screen back.
Let's talk. Okay, we owe Georgia a minute of conversation since we just completely overlooked them here.
Well, I mentioned them. You were just not paying attention, apparently.
I was paying it like.
Go ahead. Let's talk Georgia.
Okay. Again, at the beginning of the year, you're kind of holding your nose because of how they haven't been able to win it away from home. They have certainly rectified that. They didn't win the game, but they at least stayed with Kentucky, who's not as good as Virginia. At least I don't think. They had a monster win earlier this week at Texas A&M, though, and in my opinion, that changed the entire complexion of their profile from maybe being just inside the bubble to all the way up on the 9 line.
Yeah, I think they are solidly in the field at this point, and it really was. That was the big hole in their resume, and getting that win this week just was huge for them, I think.
Yeah. All right.
So again, we're down to one final spot. My team here would be Michigan State. I think yours was Boise.
Yeah, Michigan State. Yeah, and have we put Cincinnati in yet?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Moving down, we haven't put my. I guess I could click on it and look. We haven't put Miami in. I actually have Miami ahead of.
Okay. Well, John, let's throw it to you. Miami or
Boise.
Or Boise.
Since I have Miami out right now, I'm going to put Boise State in there.
Not Michigan.
Who was your other team, Chad?
No, it was Michigan State. The debate was Michigan State or Boise.
I would put Boise in at this point.
Oh my God.
Well, what about Colorado State? Was the other?
Colorado State was the other team I mentioned. Yeah.
Who?
So, John, what do you think about that, Boise or Colorado State?
You could do one of those blind resumes between Colorado State and Boise State, and you'd probably have a hard time telling whose paper is whose.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Colorado State would win it hands down. It's not even close. Colorado State, you look at their resume, in terms of bad losses, they have at New Mexico, 1. They have wins over they split with Boise. They beat San Diego State. They have a win at Colorado.
Yeah, that's their best true road win, whereas Boise, I think, has done a little more on the road.
What has Boise done on the road again? Can you remind me? One on St. Mary's?
Yeah, they won at St. Mary's, they won at Utah State, and they won at New Mexico.
Well, Boise has 2 sub-100 losses. Colorado State only has 1.
All right, let's get a decision here, John.
Boise.
All right. Oh, man. That is beautiful. Boise up on the 10. Do you think the committee would have them up this high?
No, I don't think the committee would have them in the field at all. Okay. On the 11 line, I'm going to still stick with my Michigan State team. The way we're going right now, let's do the first 3 teams on the 11 line because then we'll hit our first 4.
Okay.
I would stick with Michigan State, Colorado State again, and I would agree with you on Miami as the team after that.
Yeah, that is pretty much who okay, where are we here? Because the 11.
11. I knocked Old Dominion. Unless you want to put Old
we have
Dominion.
Dayton in the field already, don't we?
Yes,
we
we
have
do.
Yes, we
VCU
do.
in the field.
9.
Yeah, and we have VCU in the field. So yeah, it would be Miami, Colorado State, Michigan State is who I would have.
All right, so we have Miami, Colorado State, Michigan State. We are now have 4 at-large teams left. My next 4 at-large teams, which are not actually, the first one was not in my personal first 4, but since you guys put Boise State in for some stupid reason,
Well, it's the correct team to put in.
I have Seton Hall, Stanford,
Really?
UCLA. Wait, ready? Here's my last 2: UCLA and UConn.
Chad, what have you been drinking? What have you been drinking? Oh my!
He's drinking something strong if he thinks Seton Hall is still in at this point.
Yeah,
they
you
are
do
in
realize
free fall right now.
Oh,
They're in a free fall. They're still hanging in there for me, mostly based on that Villanova win.
oh boy.
Okay,
Up this high, I have perhaps this is a weak team on paper, but my at-larges, if we're talking about, I have Texas A&M, I have the Johnnies, Purdue, who I know they have some work to do, but I think they're thundering down the stretch, and then Oregon is my last team in.
Now listen, you can't even think Oregon unless you put UCLA in first, and Stanford in first.
Oh, Stanford is in a complete tailspin.
They just they lost at Utah tonight. So what?
They have redefined suck recently. They've lost at Wazoo. They've lost. They are just crashing into the mountain.
Well, tell me what Oregon has done that's better than what UCLA has done. UCLA has swept Stanford, beaten Utah, beaten Long Beach, and no losses outside the top 110.
Let's see. Oregon, I got to pull them up. I could probably be.
What Oregon has done is beaten Illinois and beating UCLA.
Hey, I'm not a
Wazoo.
Yeah, well, they beat
also
UCLA.
won 6 out of their last 7. Oregon.
That's no longer a criteria for the committee or for me.
Well, they have won 6 out of their last. Hey, I'm not a fan of Oregon.
Washington and Washington State at home. They beat USC twice, and that's 6 of the last 7. Don't give me 6 out of 7.
Well, they've won 6 out of 7. Well, hey, I'm not happy about it. I don't like Oregon. It's like having to defend it. Okay, moving down the list a little bit. I did want to mention.
Let me mention this. You did mention St. John's. In my field, I would have had St. John's in as my last team, so I do kind of agree with you that St. John's.
Okay.
These 4.
Moving down, these are the teams that I had out. UCLA, who I had pretty close. I had George Washington, St. Mary's, Rhodey. I don't think the committee would value this team, but I had them in there. I had Bowling Green. Then I had I am just so unimpressed with Stanford right now.
Well, here's my first 4 out. That Purdue team that you mentioned was my top team out.
Okay.
Beyond that, I actually did have this Oregon team next out.
Okay.
After this, let me throw this one out here. This is going to floor both of you, I think. Third team out, Minnesota, coming off of that win at Iowa tonight.
What the hell are you? Oh my God, Chad, you hit your head in the shower.
Now, let me sell you on this Minnesota team.
Minnesota.
I'm still stunned you mentioned Bowling Green on there.
Well, David doesn't know. David doesn't realize that Bowling Green lost to Ferris State, apparently, but.
Now, those are old CCAHA rivals in their hockey league.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a big hockey rivalry.
Now, but looking at Minnesota's profile right now, they have a neutral court win over Georgia, a home court win over Illinois, a road win tonight at Iowa. They've also beaten both Purdue and Western Kentucky. They only have one sub-100 loss, and that was at Nebraska. They've got the 78th strength of schedule. Their RPI is sitting right now at, not that great at...
not great.
Minnesota's RPI, as we speak, actually, after the win tonight, their RPI went all the way up from 89 to 68. They're sitting at a 38 in KenPom, 36 in BPI. Those are bubble numbers.
Those are bubble numbers. But, oh my God, I have just not been impressed with this team at all. I didn't get to see, to be a full disclosure, I was watching other games. I haven't watched the one against Iowa yet. I do think that was a good win. I guess I'm more inclined to believe that Iowa just stubbed their toes more than Minnesota played a good game.
I hate trying to sell Minnesota because I agree with you. I don't like this team, but I think their profile. Compare their profile to Texas A&M. Texas A&M is the most vanilla profile I've ever seen in my life. There's nothing there.
Oh, pull up UAB's.
Well, UAB is not a team we're discussing. You're trying to put A&M in the field. I don't think A&M belongs to the field.
Well, I don't either. I don't think anybody in the first four belongs in the field because I think we should have 64 teams. What line do we have Iowa? Where's Iowa in our field? We didn't forget to put them in, did we?
Iowa's on our yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's. The teams that we're discussing that we agree that are not in cleaning house, and again, this is what we do with the nomination board. We'll get into this a little bit later. St. Mary's out, correct?
St. Mary's wasn't even on my board. Okay, my board. I went 17 teams beyond the field and didn't have St. Mary's on it.
Okay. Tulsa, no. Rhodey, no. Bowling Green, no. So, like, the teams that you have in that I'm looking, and that are on my board are Stanford. I didn't even have many anywhere. But, I mean, you make a compelling case for many. So, Stanford, many, Texas A&M, Johnny's, Purdue, Oregon. Who are the other candidates?
I have UCLA and UConn as my other two teams here.
I just don't see UConn. But, okay, UCLA and UConn.
I don't think anybody else would even be in consideration here. I think Boise, I had it in consideration at this point, but below that, I had a bunch of other teams I listed, but none of them are serious contenders.
All right. Let me make a case. Before we turn it over to John and have him pick four teams and explain why he's picking them, make a case for UConn, because I just need a good laugh.
Okay. Number one, they are the defending national champions.
What the hell is
that? On the serious note, though. Okay, this is what UConn has done. That's good.
Lee Delvecchio likes them.
They have a neutral court win over Dayton. They have a road win over Florida that is not a tournament team and may not be an NIT team because they may not finish.
This is a great argument you're making.
But listen, they have a home win over Cincinnati, home win over Tulsa. In terms of bad losses, they have one at Houston. They have one bad loss, and if you want to give Texas credit for having a ton of good losses, you got to give UConn credit for having a ton of good losses.
I thought under the radar was last night.
Well, you tell me, other than the Houston loss, what is on the loss column is worse about UConn than Texas?
I don't have to. It's Houston. It's like 4 losses in one.
But they beat Dayton. Texas didn't beat Dayton.
Well, good. Well, I mean, really.
But no, I think that this team now, and you can see even more when they win at SMU on Saturday night, is finding a way back into the field.
Well, yeah, because they're hosting the conference tournament. Okay, John.
We need 4 teams.
We need 4 teams, and as you name them, you have to say why you're taking them.
Okay, one that jumps at me. No. Have you mentioned Louisiana State yet?
Yeah, they're already in our field.
Yeah, they're already
on the 8 line.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Stanford, Texas A&M, UCLA, and Wyoming.
Wait. We didn't.
Wait, Wyoming's not a candidate
on the list.
Yeah.
Well, where did you get Wyoming from? And you explain that.
Wyoming has been so bad, John.
But Wyoming does have a pair of wins against Colorado State, and they also have a win against Boise.
Wait, they have a pair of wins against teams that are barely in this consideration here.
Yeah.
Minnesota has better wins than that.
Yeah.
By far.
Because, I mean, Wyoming wasn't the... Did you throw out Wyoming, Chad?
No,
I don't think Wyoming was on our list.
Wyoming, let me get the screen back up. We just lost it again. I just lost it again. It's like...
Okay.
I know what I clicked a button.
Yeah, UCLA is a candidate.
You put UCLA in.
Yeah. Okay, who's the last team?
I would argue that St. John's is probably the last team that we should put in here.
It can't be Wyoming, John, because neither of us named them. Unless you really pull super arbitration here.
Let's see. Even I can't go that far.
I would argue St. John's. As I'm not allowed to, Seton Hall is the other team that I would throw out here, but you guys nixed that already.
I would have to go for St. John's at this point because
Okay.
they do have a pair which is more solidly in the field.
Yeah.
I mean, Seton Hall lost to a shorthanded Marquette team last weekend. I can't justify keeping them in the field at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we went Stanford versus A&M, UCLA versus St. John's. These are two first 4 games.
Okay.
And just to throw out here, some of the teams that we left out were Seton Hall,
Yeah.
UConn, Minnesota, Oregon.
Yeah. Tulsa. We left them out.
Tulsa.
Let's see.
Wyoming.
Purdue. And
yeah, I had Purdue I had Purdue in. I like this Purdue. Well, as much as you can like a bubble team.
Purdue and at number like 50 down here, I'll put Wyoming.
Okay.
Right next to Bad Davidson.
Yeah.
I had Davidson higher than Wyoming this week. So,
All
right, so
did you watch Wyoming in their last 2 games? It was eye gouging.
I couldn't watch them. I was operating heavy machinery.
Okay. They were more drunk than I was.
Okay, so we want to run through the rest of the seeds, the teams here. We're now to the under the radar. Well, we do have a debate here. We have not put Stephen F. Austin in. I would argue that they are the next team up here.
I have Murray. Yes, I would agree with that. Them and Murray were actually for tonight's exercise. Again, not guessing the committee. I had Stephen F. Austin inside the bubble, and I had Murray State sandwiched in between the first 4 on my bracket. So
I think before we get to Murray, we have to put Old Dominion in.
Okay, yeah. I had Old Dominion way up there too.
Well,
that was prior to the loss. So, but yeah, I think those are the next 3 teams. And again, just a reminder, we're not going to be analyzing the rest of the field the way that we did the first 12 lines. The reason for that is the Under the Radar teams have their own show. It's called Under the Radar. You can listen to it if you want more analysis on those teams.
Okay.
Chad, we see you.
Yes, you do see me.
Yes.
That's because
I don't want to see you. I want to see the bracket. Let's see.
No,
I think we may have lost Chad again.
Brackets and alcohol don't mix.
We kicked Chad off again. John, I love it when you kick Chad off like that.
Alcohol and bracket.
Yeah.
I didn't think you would get that upset over my Wyoming selection.
Wow. I mean, God, that's just crazy. I mean, I knew that. I know. I mean, I know that Chad wasn't too happy about Wyoming, but he didn't just have to storm off like that. Good Lord.
Oh, I'm back, and
right.
John, you really upset me with that Wyoming pick.
Yeah. Okay.
Where did we end off here? We ended with Murray.
Yeah.
Next group of teams here at the 13 line would be in my opinion, would be Green Bay, Eastern Washington, Harvard, and Wofford, who fell after losing at home to Chattanooga tonight.
Yeah, Wofford is hard. I would have Green Bay, Eastern Washington. I actually had UC Davis up here.
It's a nice sentimental pick, but I think that's all it is. I still think it's Wofford. David, if Wofford and UC Davis played on a neutral court, who wins?
Wofford's up here.
Okay.
Yeah. But I didn't have Harvard up here, by the way. Like I had Wofford and UC Davis in that order. But
so moving on to the 14 line, it would be Bowling Green / Toledo, and I guess we can flip a coin over who we're putting in.
Yeah. I mean...
Well, I guess we go UC Davis first, so...
yeah.
Okay.
We'll just call him the Peace Pipe this week.
So, UC Davis...
rivalry.
Yeah.
Are we going Toledo? Is that your pick here, David?
Yeah, it is. I do want to say, for those that don't follow the MAC, Bowling Green versus Toledo is a very big rivalry, and it's great that they're neck and neck for the championship. But yes, I would go with Toledo.
Okay, Toledo. Then I put in Iona and High Point to round out the 14 line.
Yeah.
15 line, real quick, we would go with Gulf Coast, Georgia Southern, North Carolina Central, and Bill and Mary.
Yeah, I actually had Georgia State instead of Georgia Southern. I know Georgia Southern's ahead of them in the standings. A compelling case could be made for Georgia Southern. They've certainly more deserving. I just think Georgia State ultimately will end up winning it.
And Gulf Coast did survive tonight at Northern Kentucky. They were actually down at the half in that one.
While North Florida lost tonight at South Carolina Upstate, giving Gulf Coast a one-game lead in the A-Sun.
Yeah.
My non-first four teams would be Albany and Texas Southern.
Yeah.
While the first four matchups would be New Mexico State versus North Dakota State.
Mm-hmm. So you have North Dakota State in over South Dakota State. I realize.
Yeah, it's a coin
they're
flip.
playing this weekend.
But North Dakota State won tonight actually.
Yeah.
So, and Bucknell and Brooklyn, St. Francis Brooklyn is the last game.
Okay. And you had New Mexico State not last. Wow.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
No, you know what? New Mexico State beat UTEP, and it's enough to be better than the other three teams on this section here.
Yeah, and they play in an unbelievable conference. I mean, the WAC featured the national runner-up back in 1998. I don't think they will be doing that this year. All right.
So, any final comments here? I'll start with you, John.
I thought that was the Mountain West where Utah was in 97 and 98.
Had they formed the Mountain West yet? Maybe they had. Okay.
That was their first year of existence, I think.
Okay, maybe you're right. All right. So
any final comments from either one of you?
I still don't understand why we just didn't build a bracket on the show.
I still don't understand why you didn't put Minnesota in, even though they weren't in my field.
Yeah.
Alcohol and brackets don't mix, fellas.
Yeah.
Boise State, the mistake. Okay.
All right.
Just so anybody that watches the show is clear how wrong you guys were.
Okay.
On that note,
we'll have the bracket built. Again, just be looking for that. It'll probably be posted either probably late tonight or early tomorrow, along with the notes in the article.
All right, and so on that note, have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again real soon.